nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I may, attendance, roll call. Bart? Here. Gerald? Here. TJ?
Here.
Dan?
Here.
And I will be here. Robert?
Here.
And Daniel?
Here.
We have a full house.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted for April 16, 2018.
All those in favor of approving the agenda of April 16, 2018, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Who seconded?
Oh, sorry. No second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm just anxious to be here. Get started. Okay. Public comment. Ms. Bonnie.
Yes, you guys remember last month when you passed the temporary library site plan?
Correct.
Well, come to light at the next board meeting that you asked the library to put some kind of bike path in there. Could you show me the ordinance where, yes, could you show me the ordinance where the bike path why? Where they have to do it in an ordinance, you know? One of our township ordinances, it says library must have bike path, or building must have bike path, or whatever it is. Because they came and they asked us in the audience and the board, because it was over their budget, it threw them out of whack by several $1,000s. They asked us how they were supposed to get it. And if there's no ordinance that says they have to have it, why don't you leave it up to them to decide whether they're gonna put it in or not, or how they're gonna control the traffic?
TJ, would you like to answer that?
Yeah. When the board, when they came to us, they did say it was suggested by the commission. They didn't say it was required. When they did their presentation, they said it was suggested for this. I think maybe they thought it was a good idea, but didn't have the funds for it. That was my understanding.
And they also said that they're not finished with their budget. There may be money in their budget because they may be deleting some things in their budget. They may not need money for it. So
Right.
it's kind of up in the air.
Well, it may be up in the air, but it was strongly suggested, and from what I took away from the ladies who came and asked us for money to do it, or try to figure out how to do it, they were going to delete something that they were going to have to use, that they thought already that they had to do. So this is not written in stone, they don't have to have this bike path?
I would think a suggestion is no, whether it's strong or weak, a suggestion is a suggestion.
And it's not, and there's nothing in the ordinance that says they have to have a bike path.
No.
So, as long as it's not, it's just a minor suggestion, because if you go through and make them do this, then the next big building that comes in will say, oh, there's precedent already for making people do whatever it was, and they'll have to do it, and it'll become part of your ordinance, whether you like it or not. So, these kind of suggestions to me are kind of an overreach.
Yeah, if it's suggested and they choose not to do it, then so be it. Because it's our tax money too. Yes, Ms. Linda?
Just to clarify, the library is currently doing a survey. It should be on our website. Anyone can go take it. It basically says if we ride a bike to the library, yes or no, and then it asks, would you be more apt to ride a bike if we had a path that was not through the parking lot? So it's our hope that we have some actual data as a board to make that decision before we come back before you.
Good idea. Any other public comment? None. All right. Was the bike path talked about in the board meeting or
No.
this meeting?
No, it was in the planning commission.
Oh, okay.
You can listen to it online.
Oh, I didn't remember it. I heard it at the board meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. New business items, master plan update. Oh, hold on. Part 13, transportation. Paul, would you like to start?
Sure. So this is the next chapter that we've undertaken to update. And what we've done by and large is I've gone through the existing text, the language in the existing master plan, and tried to do a little bit of a reorganization just to make it kind of run smoothly and consistent with the way we're looking at the other chapters. So first of all, we start off with an introduction, which is a little bit of background information, and then we get into some principles, transportation principles. So those would be kind of the things that we understand that are important to the community. And then the next section is policies and strategies that talks more specifically then about some of the specific streets. That section kind of designated all the different streets within the township to either be primary or local. And then there was a section on kind of special roads, beautification roads. And then finally we end with some of the implementation strategies. So that's kind of the reorganization to make sure everything flows. We cut some things, we moved them around a little bit, and then basically went through every paragraph, every sentence, made sure that it made sense. As with the other chapters that we've looked at, oftentimes the language was very verbose, and one of my kind of things that I try to do with these is try to make them as succinct as possible. I know I can be a little wordy sometimes too, so I try to focus on the clarity, focus on what it's saying, because this is a document that we'll use, that the township uses, the planning commission, the board uses to make policy decisions. And so we want to make sure that it's, first of all, gives the cover that you want. So it says the things, that it addresses the policies in the way that the township wants them to be, but it gives enough succinct direction then when you're making decisions, you know what it's saying. And so that's kind of where we started. As with the other updates we've done, the existing text is the black, just black and white text. Anything that was in there that's been taken out is red with a strike through, and the new text or rearranged text is green with an underline. So with that context, I can go through in as much detail as you want, or I assume you've all had the opportunity to read this, and if you have comments or feedback, I can take that now, or we can have a little discussion.
On page 5.3, bullet point 4, under the bullet points, goals, policies, and strategies, is that word existing or intend character, is supposed to be intended? It's on page 5.3.
Are you looking at the clean copy?
5-3, the clean, it's in both copies. It's actually a transfer of the old language.
Okay.
So, and I think the old language was, had a typo there.
5.3, bullet point 4.
Oh.
So if I'm looking at the right one, it says the transportation system shall complement the existing or intended character of the
Yeah,
different
it should be
areas.
intended, shouldn't it, there? Instead of intend?
Yes.
I got some on page 1, just it's about where in the middle of the tail end of the second paragraph where it says master plan may be needed, may be needed.
So if you all have line edits like this, just
Okay,
give them to me
all right.
when we're done, but I'd rather spend this time
Okay.
talking about it.
I do have on page 6
Yeah.
where you're talking,
Are we working on the clean copy?
the one that's
It has the strike throughs and everything
No.
on it? Or? No. Okay. So page 6?
page 6, and that's under the special corridors. D in part 2, Brookville Road, what part? The whole Brookville Road, or is it just part of Brookville Road?
Well, let's see.
Oh, I see what he means.
So I guess I don't know. I would take your.
Because I always thought it was from Weed Road down to Salem. I thought that was the biggest thing, that what's your name over there wanted to get beautification approval, which didn't go through. You know,
There was no clarification in the existing language, so I just took it to mean the entire thing. And just for reference, and I should have mentioned this right off the bat, we updated the map as well to make sure that that was consistent with the language here, because that's referenced not only here, but also in the zoning ordinance, so we want to make sure.
okay, and then,
Well, so what, I guess while we're talking about that, we should decide, is it appropriate to have the entire road, or is it just a section?
You're talking about the
Brookville Road.
natural landscape area?
yes,
Natural beauty road. Landscape corridor.
Are, yeah, I had a question about it. If these are all designated roads?
well, I had, like 6 Mile Road.
Officially dedicated, yeah?
No, they're just planned, in our plan to be, can be.
Yeah.
There's a whole process to go through to
Yeah.
actually make them.
Right, well,
Right.
that's why I
We're
wanted to know.
we're just
I didn't
showing it-
think we'd gone through the process.
No, but
at
it's
Township.
nice to have this in the master
Oh,
plan
okay.
so that people, if someone wants to tear down the whole road from, we got, that's part of our natural beauty potential.
It would be
I
a
think
big
if
deal if
Weed
if
Road
one of these was designated
to-
officially.
Yeah,
If anything, it'd be from Weed Road to Curtis Road. That's the only thing that has the towering trees over both sides of it. And that the part that's east of Weed is all open. I mean, all the residents cut everything down that's along the road there, so if you want a beautification road, that can't be removed, all that stuff stays, don't it?
Be careful defining what natural beauty is.
So since this has to go through a process and there's criteria,
that,
would it be best to say something along the lines that roadways or portions of the roadways or something along those lines? Linda?
This says shall. Doesn't say might be, doesn't say could be. It says a natural landscape shall be preserved. These roadways shall be designated as scenic roads. That's not an option, that's a mandate. That's what the word shall is.
So maybe we can,
And so, and to your point, Pam, there is criteria for natural beauty roads. One of the things you're looking at, on all these roads you just imposed, if they have to encompass a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
we already went through this with Brookville and a couple of the residents when they were trying to get the landscape guy out of there. They wanted to make it a natural beauty and it didn't qualify.
Well, and that's my point, that I think that when you say, I'm not saying don't want to preserve your stuff, but when you're saying, this is what it has to be and it can't meet that criteria that the county has, we're now in conflict.
So maybe we need to reword that, like,
Candidates for.
shall be preserved that may be
Could be candidates for it.
Could be candidates for it, well, and maybe, so, you know, I wasn't around for the original process when this was developed. So maybe we have an intent that we want to protect the beauty of these roads, and maybe we're using language that speaks about some other program, and that's where the confusion comes in. So maybe we want to use some different kind of designation and be more specific about what we think that means in terms of, so, you know, the criteria that we put together in your ordinance, or in your master plan, may not be the same criteria that is in the state program.
No. What about 6 Mile Road? What's the, designation for that road, why it would be in here?
Let's see, so 6 Mile is in.
designated freeway.
You say freeway, Pam?
Yeah, and I think that's for the designated Salem highway.
Yeah.
So some of these things, I think, and again, I'm speculating because I wasn't here for the development of this original language, but I would think that some of this is aspirational. So, you know, the determination was made that there are aspects of this road that could lend itself to this, and these are the kind of things that we want to protect along this road or enhance along this road. So all of this eventually leads to, or could lead to, you know, ordinance requirements that are specific to these roads. So when you have a word like shall, that gives a very strong direction then planning commission to take action on that eventually if you're doing a ordinance update to protect that road, or if you're doing some kind of special project. So that's,
And the first sentence does say, you know, the natural landscape shall be preserved, seems fine, that may be designated. So, that's a thing, but maybe we just need to change it up a little bit more, so that's.
Two things, on 6 Mile and a couple of roads, 6 Mile, you show the difference between natural beauty and special landscape corridor, where maybe we're trying to beautify those roads or sections of those roads. But how can we have, I'm asking you this question, how can we have language that stops someone from just totally, you know, clear cutting this without, you know, having some sort of a plan or whatever? Obviously, the road right-of-way is stopping them at a certain plan, so right-of-way you're not allowed to clear cut, which is where most of it is at, in the right-of-ways.
well, and frankly, the road commission could come through and do clearing within their right.
Exactly.
They have jurisdiction.
Yes, they did.
So,
It's just, you'd like to have some sort of advice before someone just,
A little bit more vertical coverage.
so ultimately, to put something like that in place, you'd have to pass an ordinance, yeah.
Correct.
Whether it be a zoning ordinance or a
but
standalone.
in this area, how do we suggest that it's required, maybe that they,
So that would go into the strategy section, that, the implementation section is that you would work on some kind of natural beauty ordinance by some name.
it's good to suggest, and I like the idea we're suggesting that there are certain roads here that we tend to, as I do, some of them I like to drive down, because they're nice roads to drive down, if you're up north sometimes. But at the same time, you know, again, they're just suggestions that these are the nicer roads in our town that we would maybe want to focus on, not necessarily force something upon.
So is that the intent that, does everybody kind of agree with this list of roads that they are important to protect the existing natural landscaping or existing vegetation?
I feel like we're getting caught in the weeds.
Well, no, I think this is an important decision to make. I mean, this is what it says
Well,
here.
only because we don't know.
Mhm.
We don't know what all the criteria is. I mean, the 6 Mile road between Curry and Chubb, I don't know what the criteria is, so for me,
What kind of are we doing by doing our landscaping and, you know, how you doing handling?
Linda?
Hopefully this clarifies this for you. First of all, only road commissions can designate roads natural beauty roads. So this is from Washington County Road Commission's website. The current average daily traffic on an unpaved roadway shall not exceed 500 vehicles for consideration as a natural beauty road. Any increase over 1,000 vehicles per day on designated roads will automatically warrant consideration of a withdrawal of the designation. So some of the roads that are on your list can't be considered because the traffic count's higher than that right now. And that's why I'm saying to have the way you have it, if you want to try to preserve natural features along the road, then say that, but don't try to mandate something that's in conflict and you don't have the right to mandate it. I'm a little surprised that Paul would not know that. I mean, I would think, again, that somebody should know, we don't control roads here in Salem. The roads are controlled by the Washington County Road Commission or State of Michigan.
I think that's good information, and that's what we were just saying. Our problem is we don't know what the rules are. We don't make the requirements, and it says right in there, the Washington County Road Commission does. So I think Paul's just trying to, you know, at first pass, without hearing anything, just trying to clean up some of the basics, so.
So I guess that would be a question that I would pose back to you. Is this something that you want to pursue in terms of trying to continue to talk about the natural beauty roads in particular, or like we said a moment ago, would we like to change this language and come up with a different terminology but with the same intent to protect
You can sit
the.
there and say the natural beauty of our roadway system is meant to be preserved. You don't have to use the definition of natural beauty. You can use those words, but not
Sure.
as a noun, as a adjective.
If that's the intent of the planning
Yeah.
commission, if you want to continue this type of language saying that we believe that's the word.
The focus should be on those words.
What if you take the word shall out?
Personally, I'd like to see the terminology natural features, because that's what they are, natural features. And just showing that we have these roads that we're considering for that. I mean, we have to literally drive them and kind of inch by inch, just, section out which ones are really that nice if we wanted to get, but that's some ordinance level stuff, that's not,
You gotta be careful.
It's not
We
master
judge-
plan level.
We have to be careful of what is judged to be beautiful. That is
natural features, not beautiful.
Right.
Well, okay.
Natural features.
6 Mile, I don't see anything natural.
Because
Well, no,
Natural
but
features
no.
on 6 Mile.
No, but there's two things on this map. There's areas that we're supposed to be maybe beautifying, and then there's areas that have natural features.
Just like
So
Paul
we need to
said,
separate that.
if you go for that, then the speed limit becomes 25.
No, we're not talking about a natural view. We're talking about natural, just identifying natural features, and then we have to do a future ordinance to say, now, these identified natural feature roads, we want to do whatever we can do to preserve the trees, whatever it is that we want to preserve there. But then there's also a second section that says special landscape corridors, where we want, township-wide, we want to see that there's some efforts to beautify them, whether it's done publicly or privately, to beautify these roads, which are the 6 Mile run and the North Territorial and Pontiac Trail, which are basically, these are, the Pontiac Trail and the North Territorial are two roads that, for our neighbors passing through, we're just trying to put on, dress them up a little bit, because there are, they say a lot about us when our neighbors drive through there. Not that we want that much traffic, but they do say something about these two roads. I mean, I get it. That's my point. I just don't know how to word it.
So, I think along the lines of what you're suggesting, Bruce, is that the implementation step would be then to establish some requirements for road beautification at such time as development occurs, basically. So that would be, so if the road is designated a special landscape corridor in the ordinance, in the master plan, then you can translate that into action by passing some of the regulations. Is that what you're suggesting?
That, to me, sounds.
I think, I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but that seems like a lot to force that on people. I thought it was more, let's just maintain and preserve what we have,
The
so.
master plan is to suggest, you have to then pass an ordinance to put specifics to it. But we can still utilize the master plan in doing a review and say, we would like this to be beautified. You think you can, include some landscape at the roadside?
This would be in a circumstance where some developer came in and was gonna build development. You would have a regulation
Okay,
ordinance that says
development.
this
I
road.
thought we were talking
We do
about,
that when we approve site plans. We designate
I thought it was
certain
private.
types of
Okay.
greenery in that we want to see them incorporate in
Okay.
their project.
Yeah.
So we do that when we
No, but-
approve site.
But this just gives us a little bit additional
Right,
background.
this is a concept. What
Right.
you're suggesting is a concept of, this is where we're going, which is what the master plan is. It's a concept of what we want to see in the future, And so you're indicating right now that, hey, we would like to have this concept of the natural beauty, along, beauty probably is wrong, what did you say,
Well,
natural?
the natural features, you want to
Natural
preserve
features.
natural features.
Natural features.
And you'd like to, special landscape areas where you're trying to sort of beautify the.
Right. It's just
I misunderstood.
the concept of it, the concept that this
Okay.
is,
Can I say something?
Yes.
We can't even get the county to cut the weeds back. The trees that are growing out in the road, all they want to do is cut it flat. They won't cut the roads, anything back. Say all the roads around here are overgrowing the roads.
Yeah,
So how are you gonna
yeah.
get them to beautify anything? Because they have to do it. They won't even.
well, I think we're looking at, Bob, is that this is a concept, this is, master plan, what we would like to see in the future. Once a developer comes in and wants to develop, then we say, our master plan says this is what we want you to do. Is that?
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
So this, this
that's
is like-
that's where then we get into what needs to be done. We're not anywhere near what needs to be done right now. We just want to preserve, the,
We're suggesting that people, developers if you will, try and preserve the areas that have natural features that are attractive to us in whatever shape or form.
Well, come
And on
here.
the ones that don't have natural features, if it's the corridors that people drive through, and I can see why they pick these corridors, the 2 pass-throughs plus 6 Mile, which is basically our township corridor, of trying to make sure, and it's the only, paved straight through, so just, if we're gonna, something is done on those roads that we put an extra effort to, make them nice looking at the road fronts, from the road fronts.
but there's no action attached to
No.
this. This
That's
is
the building.
conceptual.
It's conceptual, right?
it's policy. It's,
Yeah,
so,
it's a direction we want to see the township.
right, so essentially there are 2 different categories here. One is what's currently called the Natural Beauty Road, and we're gonna change that to have language that means that but doesn't have connotation for a specific program.
Right, exactly.
And then the other is the, a landscape, special landscape corridor. So the policy basically says we would like to protect the roads with natural features, existing natural beauty. And then the second says we believe that these roads could be enhanced by protecting natural features or existing vegetation or adding to. And so those are the township, those would be, if this becomes passed in this form, those would be the policies. And then that could either lead, it could support a public project, but as we know, the roads are controlled by the road commission, so unless we are doing some kind of publicly funded project, that's not likely the most likely scenario. A more likely scenario, as Bruce said, if a developer came in and was going to put in some housing development or otherwise, we could create then in our zoning ordinance kind of like an overlay requirement or something. Like you said, there's already requirements for landscaping, but there may be additional requirements based on this when we look at the zoning ordinance again that we might want to add, based on these policies.
I think as long as we get rid of that shall in there, because that's denoting action.
He'll
Yeah.
figure it out. He'll figure it out.
Sorry, on the landscape corridors, it can be behind or on the other side of the right-of-way for the landscape. It doesn't have to be in the right-of-way.
Yeah.
And I apologize, the question on the map that you colored in for us on this, it shows Tower Road as being a primary roadway. And I'm wondering if you pulled that map from somewhere, or did
Yeah,
that?
it was on the previous, and that's,
Because
so
I've got
that needs to be corrected.
I've got the Washtenaw County's version of the roads, and the tower is not a primary roadway.
Yeah,
It may have come from the existing maps.
it was on the existing document,
So
it's just carrier, but it isn't 66 foot wide. It is 100% dirt from top to bottom. It is 22 and a half feet wide, if you're lucky. And if you look, there's 5 whole other roads coming off it to serve neighborhoods. It is residential. Please move that under local roadways.
residential and farm equipment.
Residential and farm equipment.
Okay. Any other thoughts in looking at the map in terms of, well, and you don't have to make these decisions right now. I mean, I think this is something you can think about in terms of, to the extent that we've labeled these, and let's take the word natural beauty off and just call it scenic for now, so that there's no confusion. So there are the 2 categories, there's a special landscape and there's a scenic road. So think about these, look at these as you're driving around the township. Maybe bring this map with you and think about, are these the right roads? Are there other roads that need to be added? Are there points where they should stop or start? I don't know who was making the point earlier that from Weed Road east, Brookville isn't doesn't have much vegetation. there.
No.
It's all been cleared out.
East of Weed Road on Brookdale, all the way to, it circles around to Gopperson, it's all homes and open.
But in terms of,
West is tree covered, almost, it's not that far past it, west of Weed Road, all the way out to Curry Road,
Yeah.
Curtis Road.
well, so in terms of creating policy or being aspirational, just looking at it from a map standpoint, Salem Road coming south of 6 Mile all the way down, there could be some continuity if you left it that way.
Mhm.
So just turning the corner so that, that remains in place so that if in the future somebody's looking to do something there, we can try to support those policies. Does that make sense? Just a thought.
Yep.
So anyway, as you're thinking about it, we don't have to finalize this map tonight, but I guess that would be the feedback that I would look for from you all is, are these the right designations? Are there changes that need to be made? Are there things that need to be taken off? Or are there things that need to be added?
I just had a question, Paul, on the unrevised Part 13, on page 5-8. There's a large paragraph that's removed. There was an idea, maybe you can give me some history before I was involved. There was an idea of making Gopperson
Go
go straight
over.
north through the Chubb. I see you removed all that. Can you give me some information on that? That thing's been off the table now, or what?
To be honest, I've got a call into the road commission right now to find out whether or not that's something that's feasible. My speculation is that that's probably not, but I don't know.
Yeah, if you
It
look at
was
a
being
map,
discussed
I've
when we
looked
talked
at a
about
map, and
GCI
you've got
coming in.
3/4 of a mile private property, homes.
Okay.
I can't imagine the public, either the process, the need for right-of-way acquisition, the cost of building a new road.
Or go to the swamp.
Yeah, so that's.
So someone had an idea, but not feasible.
I don't think it's feasible, and so that was my best educated guess to just kind of mark that off for right
Okay.
now.
There's also residents that are opposed to that.
I mean, and really, as we look at some of the cut-through issues that we have now, that would just exacerbate the traffic in that area.
There was a 2006 map from the Road Commission that shows as a special study area that they circled that. And I'm sure it's been studied. And I think there's other opportunities for us to manage traffic without building another road, take that same amount of money that would take to acquire property and everything else and use it to improve 5 miles.
Maybe
of road.
pave something else, yeah.
Yes, would probably be a much better idea. One of the, as long as we're on that topic, there was 2 adjustments in the roads that they were suggesting. And one was at Angle where it hits 6 Mile, and the other one was at Tower where it hits 7 Mile, where 7 Mile has that curve. I'm asking the question from our historians here. They did something to that a few years ago, several years ago. We used to have 2 ways to get on Tower Road. Now it's just one, fill one in. Has that been done? Is that what they consider being done as far as the road commission goes?
At Tower and 7,
Tower and 7?
yeah, that's a completed project. It's paved for its entrance onto 7.
Yeah, so that, where it's in here, in our previous master plan, I think that one project was done, but the 6 Mile and Tower Road, is still kind of a pretty, 6 Mile and
6
Angle
Mile
Road.
Angle was another one that's mentioned in here.
That's not been straightened out, that's still a, potential hazard if you with that steep angle.
So 6 Mile should come out.
The 7 Mile and
7 and
Tower is done.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
That project, I think, is done. Something got done, so I assume it's a completed project.
If it isn't, they've been taking a real long break.
Well, I will ask when I do get a return call about both of those projects as well.
And then right along with that is F, which says realign the intersection of North Territorial and Pontiac Trail, so it's at right angles. Is that a big safety issue to warrant that expense? And I know that several years ago that the road commission was considering putting in a roundabout there because there's 30, 40 car backup every morning and afternoon.
Yeah, it's a bad angle, the way the road is. If you're coming east down North Territorial, you can't see cars coming from the right.
But I mean, it's a four-way
It's
stop.
flat as a pancake, you can see forever.
It's a four-way
It's like the hills of
stop.
Vermont.
But I mean, if the road commission eventually put
Can't
in
see
a
because
roundabout,
it's
that
a
would
geometry, it's
solve
not,
On the road.
the angle problem, because they can
the
do a
angle
roundabout,
that the road is at,
you know,
you
and
know,
Right.
the further
just the
south
way
it goes.
that, yeah, they don't have to actually
goes
change the
west.
road, they would change that, so.
I think that that's still something that's being considered, like when we were talking about the potential pathway on Pontiac Trail, I think that came up. The idea that could, you know, potentially be around.
I don't know.
Somebody just said there's not the right of way space at this point. So they've got a big chunk of land on the Flower Bar side.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the gas station is right around that other side.
Don't they own also the point up to Brookville? You know, that, the north, be the southwest corner. That whole, I thought the county owned part of that road, part of that pie.
I'd have to look at the right of way now.
They have some right-of-ways. On the right-of-way map, I have a right-of-way map from the county that shows what they would like to get in the right-of-ways, which looks somewhat consistent with what's in your language there, but I don't know if you have the current one. If you don't, I can give you a copy of what I have. Because I can't find it on the website again. I had it once, I cannot find it again. It has their wish list for right-of-way widths. And then if you are talking to the county and this transportation thing, there's two intersections on Pontiac Trail, 7 Mile and obviously the North Territorial, that were up for the roundabouts or traffic signals or something.
Roundabouts.
Well, that's what their first choice is,
Yeah.
my understanding, but I'm just curious to know what the update is and if we can,
Okay.
if it's something you want to put into this section, you know, update it into this section.
Yeah, I know in Ann Arbor, you know, they did the one last year at Nixon and Duvere, and the angles were really off there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were
And just
staggered,
by
they were
putting
stepped.
in the roundabout, it,
It eliminated that
Yeah.
issue.
And it was stepped over and everything else, yeah. And the floor.
And those intersections that you mentioned, Bruce, were all on Pontiac Trail? What were, we mentioned?
7 Mile and Pontiac Trail's one, and then
North
Pontiac Trail,
Territorial.
North Territorial. Those are the two that are the backup issues.
I think the one that you referenced on Nixon Farm was probably funded because developers were coming in there and so they were able to extract.
but I know it did solve
Right.
that issue of the misaligned roads.
Which is a great thing.
I wouldn't want to fund straightening the roads and then
Right.
be told that, oh, we're gonna put a roundabout in it, so all the money is.
Curry and 8 Mile is the same thing. They offset.
Yes. But again, I think
Accidents there.
There's a lot of
A lot of
accidents, that intersection, because it's
that has to
dying
go through the road commission anyway.
because of the hill.
Hopefully they'll
Okay.
not spend our money foolishly.
Bruce, did you have anything else in your list?
Yeah, that's right.
Since you're on the hot street.
Other than towards the end, and I really didn't, I can't say, but again, we don't have control over the county, but is there any reason to mention things in there that might help us give more leverage to the county? Talking about issues that we're having with, because it mentions about, you know, trying to be friendly to what we're doing in that, somewhere in terms of the farming and whatnot, but drainage, curbing, ditching, grading, trimming of the trees, the extra grading of certain roads, not necessarily all the roads, but certain roads might need that extra grading so that we can still maintain our farming culture.
I think that any things that you have in here do help support future activities or negotiations when you're dealing with the road commission, even though you don't have jurisdiction, because they have the opportunity to review this and comment on it before it becomes finally approved by the board. The road commission would certainly have the opportunity to look at this and we would encourage them to provide feedback, so.
Anything to strengthen up that,
If you've got some language you'd like to pass along, or if you want to.
not specific language, but I'm hearing that road drainage or drainage and some of the tree trimming are some issues, as well as the grading at certain times of the year where it makes,
I would suggest, go look and see what like Ann Arbor Township has in any sort of language, and you just go straight down Pontiac Trail, and as you come into the power station there, as you come into Ann Arbor, right at the very end of Pontiac Trail, you'll see trees growing up and over. I mean, the power lines are draping on those trees, and those trees aren't touched. I mean, and then you come up here, and they have, you know, a 200-year-old oak is hacked right out of the middle, and it's now a big capital Y. You know, so there's a difference in what's going on. So if they have language that works, you know, I wouldn't be ashamed in copying and pasting, because something is different down there. And it may just be the power of the line, but, you know, I don't know. Just a quick comment, I throw the railroad tracks in this map just for whatever.
Okay.
You know, just to be able to see where they move, because as you're sitting here talking about roads and traffic, you know, a railroad crossing can sort of glitch you and go, oh yeah, that's right.
That's a great point.
And then, we were talking about some intersections, you know, in my opinion, the one I avoid like the plague is coming north on Curtis to 6 Mile. Because there's no light there, and you got all this east-west traffic, and you just basically gotta drop clutch and go, you know, pull out into there. Just, you know, right down here, but just past Gary's. Well, actually, just before Gary's.
Tricky one.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
That's my route here.
Huh?
That's my route here.
Yeah, well, there you go. Are you turning right or left?
Right, so it's easier.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know.
I have another section. What do people think of? It's page 5-3, and it's one with crossouts. It's been redesignated as E. Existing, and not exiting, but existing unpaved roads throughout the township should be paved. Washington County standards whenever possible. I mean, is that something that people in township really want, is every road to be paved? I don't.
I will tell you what, here's the hitch. And, you know, Tower Road, growing up with 4 kids, you know, growing up with my 4 kids. Tower Road, because it is an unpaved, defaults to the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit in Michigan unless you can get it declared a natural beauty road, to which it gets down to a legitimate 25 mile an hour. As soon as you pave that road, the county will come in and put a posted speed limit on there that will probably be 40 miles an hour. But you'll still drive 55. But when you're driving 55, at least you have traction, you get runoff, it can be plowed, and you're not ripping your car apart. You know, so there's a balance there, and I tell you what, this is something I'd almost like to just take up with the county and just say, guys, we need to change this, because the 55 mile an hour speed limit that you're trying to find the right word, inconsiderate person will actually take advantage of on these dirt roads is ridiculous and unsafe. It absolutely is ridiculous and unsafe. Now, that being said, Linda, I don't know, maybe you know, you probably know more. I'm sure you know more about it. Forget it, I'm gonna keep just raising the bar there. Could the township, as a township, literally just say, anything that's dirt is this? And I'm gonna keep raising it.
No, it's controlled by the state.
By the county, and the state
No,
then
it's
county.
controlled by the state police, the county, and there have been bills that have been put in Lansing to give townships a voice, and so far nothing's passed. But you claim that the dirt roads are unsafe, and that's not factual, there's
Well,
not data.
okay.
There's not, hang on, I'm talking, there's not data to support that. But to T-Day's comment, which started this aside, she asked, do the people here want their roads paved? And I think her question deserves an answer. That's probably 8 to 10 years ago, the board wanted to pave Tower Road between 7 and 8 miles because it is a highly trafficked segment of Tower Road. And they were almost lynched because the people that lived on that road wanted to remain dirt.
And I would
Bart,
too.
I come down in front of your house every morning because I don't like to sit. Curtis Road in 6 miles, so I come out at Tower. And the road is terrible. And it is, and a lot of that's seasonal. But it does not begin to have the traffic on that road that a paved road would have. And that's the balance is, you pave a road, you will get traffic because we're a pass-through community. But I think, again, to not discount, Bart, what you said, but TJ's question is, do the people of this community, the last time it happened, the answer was resounding, they do not.
Yeah, people equate, I agree, I think that would be the response. You know, it'd be interesting to see what it was, but I think people in general, they move to a dirt road, they accept it, they know, and it keeps the rural character. Now, just to go back, unsafe may be, you know, I go down Tower Road and I assess the road for what it is, and you can't see, you know, driveways coming out and, you know, potholes and loose gravel. I would consider it unsafe to drive at 55 miles an hour on most days. It's gravel, it's loose gravel, you know.
Unsafe is determined by the number of accidents that you have per mile. You have to have a reporting system. You can't say a road is unsafe. You have to have that data, and the road commission, if they were here, would take umbrage with what you're saying.
Yeah, I understand.
Because we don't have on Tower Road a lot of accidents. And the last time that there were people in the ditch on Tower Road, it was because it was real icy and everybody was in the ditch that day.
You know, I'm coming from, I'm not getting, I will never get into a debate with you. I know. I'm coming from a vehicle dynamic standpoint. What's the stopping distance with this vehicle, with this tire, on dry, clean blacktop as opposed to loose gravel? That type of thing. What's the transient response to your vehicle? What kind of G's can you pull? Talk about it makes it unsafe. It makes it less safe. Is it unsafe? No. It makes it less safe. Because physics exists.
Yeah, let's
That's all it
move
is.
on.
No, I know, I want to clarify. I'm not arguing with her. I'm just
Yeah,
want to clarify what I'm saying.
But you know,
It's
to each
never
his
gonna
own.
change.
If you're gonna
Yeah.
drive like an idiot, then you know what, you might end up in the ditch.
So I think TJ did make a good point.
What's that?
I think TJ did make a good point, and I think this statement is too broad. And so,
Yeah, we have a lot of dirt roads
Yeah.
and a lot of people like them, so.
These have been hot issues at board meetings in the past. Whenever they talk about paving, people go crazy.
Yeah.
so I wonder if we couldn't, in addition to thinking about the roads that would be appropriate to be designated as scenic roads or what have you, we could think about the roads that we would aspire to pave. Because I know there are some we do
I'm not
aspire
going to say we're opposed to a couple hundred gravel trains of 21 AA though. I'm not going to say
No, I
that.
got you. And I think Bruce already made
What,
that.
dirt roads and we want them to be maintained.
Yeah, so I think Bruce already made that point, that there are some maintenance issues that we could strengthen the language in here. But in terms of identifying the existing dirt roads, instead of saying all dirt roads should be paved with the opportunity, shouldn't be there. That's too broad. But I know that there are some that we have talked about. Chub roads, but Chub road's certainly not the only one, I wouldn't think. So if I could get some feedback from you all on that, I'd appreciate that as well. And I can change this sentence to reference those roads that we designated.
You got a lot of trees.
Does that sound acceptable?
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Darryl, did you have any
No.
questions?
No, I'm good.
Bruce, you all right?
One on, and I circled about bike paths and or sidewalks and back.
That's on page 10, maybe? Bicycle pedestrian circulation starts on 5-10 of the one with the edits shown.
In there. I'll just submit it back to you.
Okay.
These are
Great.
simple things.
And that's true of anybody else, if you have additional comments or thoughts that you want to share.
Oh, it was in, it was just, again, I'll submit it back, it was on 5-12 under implementation strategies. But-
Okay.
Well, that's
so that was the first run through, trying to clean this up, and I wanted to get your feedback, which I appreciate. And then there are just a couple more sections, really. There are none as substantial as the ones that we've looked at so far, but a couple others that I've been working on some cleanups, just kind of making sure that they're all consistent, like the introduction, to how this plan works, which I think can be much simpler, and the demographic kind of information should be updated because times have changed since the last one.
All right.
Thanks for that.
We don't finish, they're gonna change again. Okay. All right. 6B, potential administrator report discussion.
Discuss a potential report.
Yep. Potential report. Bruce brought to my attention at our last meeting, and I think we've even had it before, where to have an administrative report, just to, not like a big written report, but maybe some updates, like some bullet points of updates of some things that are going on in the community that would be pertinent to the planning commission in regards to, some of these site plans that we look at and whatnot, and have spent time on, like, the one I can think of is like the Coptic Church up and it just disappears. Or there's a couple that, to know if those things disappear, or are we having, a big barrage of building permits, what's going on in our community, just some things like that. And Bruce, I'm sure you had some ideas, but only those things that would be pertinent to us, so we know if something's impacting, what we have already done, or just so we can stay, more relevant.
I think we should know about new construction.
So I think that one's an easy one. That's no brainer for sure. Building permits issued, Ann can do a couple keystrokes, I believe, and we can print off a monthly report of what's been issued. It's the other ones that may be a little more nuanced, and so I think that's why you put this on here, right, is to talk about what would be important for you to hear.
Yeah.
Certainly, we can do updates on projects that have been approved by the planning commission.
Okay,
I don't know about the Catholic Church, that one must have been before.
that's all right, it's gone.
Okay.
Is it just off the table?
I don't know, that's what I
I
heard.
still have the blueprint, so I'm just
Yeah.
like, do I save them?
No, it's just nothing has happened. I don't know, I haven't had an update yet.
But then there are other things like projects that come before you. You provide some direction, send the applicant away to come back with new prints to address the outstanding items. And many of those, sometimes I hear back from them, like, for example, what did we see before? The American Storage?
Okay.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I spoke with the owner a month ago. He said he's still working through it. He's gonna.
The guy that was gonna buy the airport, remember, he was in here. And it was the last we heard of him.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's more stuff on the side that, really hasn't come before us, may never come before us.
What about the Coptic Church?
He came before us.
I'm sorry, but I'd like to hear some of the, it's important to me to hear the phone call, just a brief listing of some of the phone calls, even if it's just a summary report of, we're getting calls about this property or possible development over here. You field a lot of them and take care of them. And usually, like I say, they go away or they go back to the drawing board. But just curiosity, how much interest is there in our town in addition to what's already before us in terms of permits? So if there's notable phone calls or requests or information seeking, things that might have give us some sort of flavor of what people
I mean, I
are
could certainly
thinking
let
about.
you know if somebody came in and had a formal pre-development meeting. That's easy. The other stuff, sometimes it's just speculation. It doesn't go anywhere more than a phone call. And so I don't know how I'd be able to size out what was.
It may be just a commentary type report. that just, you know,
I
gets
think we need to
activity.
be careful
up-
about something that's solves our curiosity, and I'm wondering if maybe it might be best if, you know, like, if I have things I'm curious about in the community, I actually come in myself. As opposed, I just wanna be able to strike a balance for Paul and Ann in regards to what's actually gonna be helpful to us. Cause I have a lot of curiosity projects too, that's why I stopped in. But, as opposed to putting things on a report and, you know, maybe getting things all, you know, people all upset over nothing that won't ever happen.
Right, to bring something before a public meeting that someone is
Thinking
being able
about-
to handle privately at that time and then have it recorded on our website, yeah, I think could be,
Some issues.
yeah.
Same thing in the Coptic church, the big deal that we had, that was before us, and all the paperwork and everything came through, and no more. I did ask Ann, and Ann said it's off the record now. They gotta start all over, because it's been so many years, and nothing's transpired. And I said, I can remember the big to-do, because we had a large crowd here, because people were getting nervous about that big church, and then 4 big towers, and all that. And all of a sudden, now there's nothing.
Maybe things more like, you know, the township was getting calls about fences, which prompted us to have a discussion about our fence ordinance. I was thinking more along the lines of that in the building permits, you know, that's something that would be, you know, like there's issues or concerns with an ordinance.
Individual's privacy.
Right.
But
Yeah, so I certainly could bring some of that to your attention if something is rising to the top as a noteworthy kind of frequent
Sure.
call.
We don't wanna get into everybody's personal business, I don't think that's our business.
If I was a developer and I was curious about buying a piece of property, I wouldn't want you folks to know or anyone else. So if I'm, like the piece of property down here, the Bonner's property, as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't know, because
Right.
the guy wanna buy 2 or 3 different places, the price could go up if the owner knew.
Well, that's why we said building permits, something that people have already applied for.
Somebody's speculating, you don't want everybody to know about it.
Well, we don't want speculation, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, it was just something to bring up, to think about, you know, and if you got any more on it, or if you have any ideas what we should, or what we shouldn't be doing, then, you know.
And I know I'm curious about some properties that there's potential development, you know, that it's been discussion informally with the township, you know, but it is dangerous to make that
In a
matter of a
public
public
forum.
record, yeah.
So you just have to go through the regular grapevine for that, not regular. I'm just
But
teasing.
updates,
I can give you
updates
an
would be good.
example.
Okay, updates, we can
On
definitely
things
do that.
that are
Yes, Mr.
recorded.
Mr. Much is in the hospital and his wife passed away. He's
Who?
got- Mr. Much, he's got 37 acres of heavy industrial property behind him.
Oh,
I mean, the kids are actually running it, so that's, somebody's gonna end up with it. And I understand that there's a couple people in the township that are looking into it.
Okay.
This next topic is very
even the
interesting.
pre-development meetings that we've had, they tend to fall by the wayside too.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there
I
might
mean,
just be
usually-
extra work that's
yeah.
fruitless and isn't very helpful. So I'm just trying to be helpful but efficient at the same time.
Okay, fair enough. I think I understand what you're looking
Okay.
for.
If anybody has any ideas, you can shoot Paul an email, I guess. So if you come up with something afterwards or.
She's way back.
Oh, sometimes it's just easier. Okay.
See.
6C, Planning Commission Temporary Structure Update, Arbor Hill Center for Resource Management, Temporary Office Building.
Can I ask, what's the update? When was the other one? The first one?
No, this is an
was
update.
totally surprised for me when I saw this.
We're required to update you on administrative approval. So they came in to do a temporary structure. It fit the criteria of administrative approval for the site plan temporary in nature. We went through that process, and then there's a section in the ordinance, if you follow that section 3.29, that requires that we notify the planning commission.
Okay, they took the house down here on 6 Mile, it's down.
Yep, that's a different
But,
project.
you know, that was their office. Now they're requesting an office over by the railroad tracks. Like Bruce says things earlier, nobody had the option to maybe save the house or do anything with it, or they just decided to rip it down, and then now we're gonna go get a new office. But
I guess I can't speak to that. I was not involved in the permitting for the demo of that house. That's not something that came through me. That's something that if you want to demo a house, you pull a demo permit through the building department. There's nothing in the ordinance that I, as a zoning officer, would sign off on. I did see it coming down that day, and it was relatively disappointing. It looked like a very cool house. I mean, I'm not super familiar with it, but it was sad to see it go down because it looked very ornate with the trimming and everything.
Could that have been a Centennial house if it was registered, or no?
No idea.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, based on the information I had, the application that was provided, it met the criteria for doing an administrative approval. And they were granted the ability to have this temporary structure there for a period not to exceed 2 years. They placed a removal bond with the township to ensure its removal. They're in the process of renovating the roof. Some fire there. So the sooner they do that, I assume the sooner this building will come up. It's essentially tucked in the middle of that facility. You can't really even see it from the road. It's on an existing parking pad, it's not being used.
this temporary office structure, is that like a trailer being brought in for an office?
It's modular units, yeah. Construction trailer, yeah. It's a really big construction trailer.
Any other questions, concerns? Old business items, none. Reports of commissioners and correspondence, Board of Trustee.
The rezoning of Macedonia Lane was approved by the board.
ZBA,
Nothing.
land preservation and conservation.
Well, our meeting is actually tomorrow night, but I want to thank the board for approving the Boy Scouts for working on the Salem Preserve, and I think we're still working on getting some signatures on the property at Curtis and Brookville. They can negotiate. Oh, yes.
What do the Boy Scouts do?
Let's see, I don't have the dates here, but Saturday before Mother's Day, which would be 12th of May. Thank you. Boy Scouts are doing an Eagle Scout project on the land preserve. They're going to install a couple of park benches along the parkway, a little bit of signage out front, clean up some of the paths. I think they're looking at some bird/bat houses. And there was a handful of projects on there.
And they raised funding.
Oh, it's all funded by the Eagle Scout group funded it, but they're inviting anybody who would like to come out on that Saturday to help or to participate. They have quite a crowd themselves, but it's a, you know, let's clean up our Salem Preserve.
Quite a nice thing for them to do.
Yes, it is.
That's a big deal when they do those big awards like that, whether it's, you know, Girl Scouts or something. They are referred to $3 funding and stuff. It has to be a lasting, something that's lasting, so.
And the benches are, I mean,
Yeah.
there's gonna be concrete
Yeah, right,
underneath.
exactly.
Concreted
Yeah.
in, composite
Yeah.
materials, so.
That'd be quite a project.
Okay, good stuff. Chairperson, none? said my piece all along. Approval of the minutes for March 19, 2018.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from March 19th, 2018 as written.
I'll second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of March 19, 2018 as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 10, public comment. None? And adjournment is at 8:36. Thank you. Okay. She calls me up at 3 o'clock and says she is
Signs down. Oh, let's see.
Why not?
Here come crab cakes.
You did stuff on Saturday.
Oh, well, I gotta go.
She had
Girls Cabins. Wait, no.
She did
Crab
about
cakes.
0 hours.
Actually, that's crab cakes.
7 hours. So that kind of stuff. I said, it wasn't.